And welcome to this week's episode of Mindset Mentoring for athletes, families, and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Coach Chuck. We're going to be beginning a series of podcasts where we take a look at education and the mental health of the young people today. There's been a whole lot of data showing that the mental health is actually, to quote some experts, reaching a crisis proportion. So we're going to be talking with people who are on the front lines of that, educators, parents, hopefully teenagers themselves, and coaches. And we're going to take a look at the role of education in this and see what's going on and what maybe we can do with that. This week we're going to be talking with George Conant, who's had quite a long career in education, both as a teacher and administrator, and is now doing consulting work. And we're going to talk about what that consulting work entails right after this. So stay tuned for that.
Welcome to Success Institutes, where we turn potential into achievement. Are you ready to transform your mindset and unlock your true potential? We are experts at guiding teenagers, families, athletes, and entrepreneurs to break through limiting beliefs and release negative emotions, empowering them to adopt a champion's mindset. Do you feel like you have more potential to unlock, but something is holding you back from reaching it? Or do you feel that about your teenager, teen, or business? At Success Institutes, we understand these challenges. Our Mindset Transformation Training and 10-week Transformative Habits Integration Program are designed to help you overcome unconscious obstacles, foster a growth mindset, and build habits that allow you to become a master of your mindset and a master of your life. Our foundational programs offer practical tools and strategies to shift from a mindset of defeatism to one of unstoppable success. Imagine gaining clarity, confidence, and the habits needed to reach your goals and enhance your well-being. Whether you're an athlete striving to reach new heights, a student pushing for academic success, a parent balancing your teen's needs with your own challenges, or an entrepreneur looking to unlock your full potential and that of your team, we are ready to support you every step of the journey. Discover how our tailored programs can help you break barriers and build a future full of possibilities. Ready to take the first step towards transformation? Visit successinstitutes.co and schedule a discovery call with our team today to learn how you can shift your mindset, overcome challenges, and achieve your dreams. Success begins with the right mindset. Contact us now to start your journey to greatness.
Welcome back. I'd like to introduce George Conant. George has been working with people, and he's always had a passion for working with young people. When through his involvement in 4-H and coaching youth sports, he recognized the positive impact he could have on young people. He made the decision to leave his family dairy farm for a career in education. After obtaining his K-8 teaching certificate while working as an ed tech in special education, his first teaching assignment was transitioning students from a middle school to high school special needs program. After 3 years in third grade teaching position, he relocated to Southern Maine and taught middle school alternative education for 1 year before accepting a sixth grade position that he held for 13 years. To effect a wider impact, he pursued his administrative certificate and served as an assistant principal for the next 8 years. During this time, he implemented restorative practices in his school. He saw firsthand the significant impact his change in approach makes. After 25 years in the schools, he has been providing trainings and consulting with schools across the state of Maine. After seeing all the positive results Restorative Practices has provided educators and students, this has become a true passion of his. So let's welcome George Conant. Welcome, George. I appreciate you coming on.
Glad to help you.
Yeah, you and I go back a ways, so I know that your passion has always been kids-centered, and that's been one of the kind of the hallmarks, I think, of what we tried to do with working, is building those relationships and how important that is in not just the education so much of the kids, but their social development and all of that. So we kind of share that. And I think we're going to talk a little bit today with these restorative practices, how that plays into all this. I am assuming, though, there are a number of people who might be listening to this who don't really know what restorative practices is. So could you maybe begin by filling us in? When we talk about restorative practices, what are we talking about?
Good. No. Well, sort of going along with your theme, restorative practices, it's a mindset. It's not a program. Restorative practices requires a mindset of doing things with students and not to or for them. Educators with a restorative mindset place students at the center of their practices, and restorative practices encompasses a variety of structures and activities and systems and practices aimed at building a strong community and belonging and supporting social and emotional development and helping students understand their role as a community member. The misconception sometimes is people hear restorative practice and they said, oh, it's about discipline. And that's really not true, because restorative practice, 80% of restorative practices, when you really have it implemented and working in your school, 80% of it is proactive, and only 20% of it is reactive. But traditional discipline usually they usually have an approach of where a child has a conflict or an incident. They're going to place blame on something, and then the blame for their actions and the behaviors, and then it's going to result in a punishment. So it's what we refer to as blame and punishment philosophy. And the one thing about restorative practices is that we help kids understand that when they have a conflict or when they have an issue with another person, they should understand what kind of harm has either they have incurred or they made happen, and figure out how to make it right. So the restorative practices philosophy is identifying when there's been harm done, and when and the person who has done that harm needs to make it right with the person. So that's what we call that, from harm and repair. So the other thing that we try to get everyone to understand is that conflict should be an opportunity to learn. Conflict's not a problem that needs solving, but a phenomenon that needs understanding. So we try to get people together. We use restorative circles, which is a place where people sit in a circle. It's very structured. You have a talking piece, and you have an agenda where kids can share their concerns and their needs. And the importance of doing this is to try to build a trusting and safe place where students are willing to bring their wants and their needs freely to their learning community, and everybody help solve those issues.
That's good stuff. You said in there a couple things about trying to make things right, which I think that is an important piece that often gets missed when you're trying to deal with some of the behaviors and all. One of the other things I think about is discipline and the climate and culture of a school. So much of that is related to how you handle conflicts within the whole building structure. And I don't think I need to point to data even to our audience about if there is a lot of conflict within the school and it's kind of festering, it's not really being dealt with, then that negatively impacts the mindset and the mental health of people. A lot more anxiety, a lot more fear, a lot more negative emotions for people going into the building when there is this underlying climate of conflict. So that idea of like trying to make things right sounds like fabulous. Like, can you maybe talk a little bit about how restorative justice or practices affects that climate? Like what is it that's going on that kind of can impact that climate and culture of a school?
Sure, and I want to make clear that it is restorative practices, not restorative justice. Only because it did spawn from restorative justice, which deals more with legal infractions or legal system, and that sometimes is a red flag to people, and they run away from it because they think it's going to include the judicial system. Whereas the implementation of restorative practices can transform the environment and the climate by giving every member of the learning community, for me, a big thing is it gives them a voice and a choice. One of the things we ask people, do you want to have a voice and a choice on what happens in your daily routine at your school? And they'll say, yeah, but what am I going to have to give for it? And I tell them, all you have to give is what you have to give anyways. You're going to be held responsible for your words and your actions. So it really just welcomes people in. And what I believe restorative practices does, it's a place where you can build a safe and trusted environment where people can share and ask for what they need and help others be successful too. I think just relationships are the answer to building a trusted and safe environment, and people want to belong. I mean, everyone says, human nature is that we were hardwired to want to have relationships and to belong and to feel important. And when that doesn't happen, it's really lacks, and it usually will rear its ugly head in some kind of negative behavior.
Yeah, I think lots of times what goes on in schools and some of the things that really require a lot of the discipline issues are these relationship issues, right? Things that somebody says something, somebody thinks somebody said something that they shouldn't have said, and these things can fester. And it sounds like what restorative practices is about is you take care of those things before they infect, for lack of better analogy, the whole climate. So is that, in your experiences, when you take care of those little things, it prevents some of the bigger issues from arising? Is that an accurate way of saying things?
Yeah, as a neurologist, Bruce Perry, who says if you need to connect before you correct. That if you haven't got to know your students and connected with them, good luck trying to get them to learn. And one of my favorite people, Brene Brown, she says that it's just important that we know everybody's story and we understand them so we can help them. If kids come to school carrying just so much baggage, and I say it's also restorative practices can filter into the home and help families learn how to have positive conversations and to interact in a positive way, and it just needs to happen. And sometimes in education we just forget that we have schools because we have kids to learn, not because we have information that needs to be transferred to their heads, because it's not going to be successfully transferred if they aren't there and feel safe and trusted to learn. And that's just data shows that schools that have a positive climate, school climate and culture, they are the higher achieving schools.
You just mentioned in there, and I was going to actually ask you this, so it was a perfect segue in, is that families, right? So how how do you go about you go in and you train staff and you work with staff in schools and all, but family involvement obviously has to play in there somehow, and it seems like this would be the kind of thing that could really help sometimes those family dynamics improve. So is that something that you actively try to do going to families? Is it something that filters out? Can you kind of talk about that sometimes, that real delicate, challenging area is school and family, and that line in between the two realms. Can you talk about that?
It's difficult. I'll tell you. First, I really believe if a school's going to implement restorative practices, it needs to be something that they want to do, not something they're being made to do. It's a mindset. It's a change of presentation to staff and students and families, and I just think that it takes 3 to 5 years in order to really transform a school. But if you get started, I tell people, I'm not so big in telling you I'm going to help you change the culture of your school, but I'm very big in saying that restorative practices can immediately help change the climate of your school, which is the day-to-day operations. It's what everybody sees, and I just think, I believe it. I worked 4 or 5 years with schools training and helping kids more than helping the staff. I help the staff understand what it is, but now in my trainings, I want to work with staff before I work with kids, because I believe the adults that are dealing with the population in a school, they need to understand restorative practices, and they need to welcome it and practice it in order for it to be successful. And that, I'm going to tell you, that's not an easy thing to do, but I can tell you I have several schools that, wow, I just can't believe how well their schools run and how well things have done since they have instituted restorative practices. But it starts with, for me, it starts with the staff, and then they have to feel comfortable enough with it to transfer it to their students. And most of that means the language that you're going to use is some language that we put into place, but then you institute the use of what we call restorative circles. And the process is somewhat structured, and it should be built from just a friendly opening before you get to know to do anything that might be delving into the realm of discipline or something. So we tell schools they need to start out with just community circles, whereas you build a community. I believe in schools that every group that you meet with, you need to refer to them as a community, and help the students understand that in order to have a community, we have to have some rules and regulations that we're going to live by, and have them set what those look like, have them establish them, and then you go ahead and say, okay, now we're going to move into the educational piece that we need to do, and we're going to follow those rules that the kids built, and not that were passed down from the teachers. It just makes a whole different ball of wax. So it's just including everybody. The one thing about restorative practices, I said in the beginning, it's about doing things with people and not to them and for them. I believe in the whole educational structure, from school boards right down to parents. Everybody has to be on the same page and want the same outcome in order for anything to be successful.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it seems like that's where some of the challenges today really seem to be coming out, is trying to get on that same page and all. Again, you had mentioned in your answer there that the climate and culture, right? The climate is more immediate. Culture is building that climate over a longer period of time. And I still remember, once I had first done my coursework and all to be a teacher, I was substitute teaching. so I got to go in a lot of buildings, and you could just go in to a building and you feel it. It's just when a school is running well, it's just the whole feels different. The energy is different. Two of the well, one of the schools in middle schools in South Portland was completely different at this time than the other one. Right, the two middle schools, you go into one versus the other, and it was night and day between the whole feel of it. And that's it's really how the structure of the whole school's being run, and the communication, and all those things. But ultimately, is how are they dealing with the students, and those relationships, and the conversations that can happen are so important. The other thing is, you say you really want to bring the staff in, right? And they got to want to do that. So how do people usually find you? Does it usually begin with an administrator who says, listen, we want to do this, and they bring you in, and you try to do a training and all? Or do you find that schools, teachers are saying, no, listen, I've heard about this restorative practices, we need this? Is it a mixed bag? And does it matter if it begins with the teachers? Is that more important than if it begins with an administrator who's saying, we're going to do this? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have mixed thoughts, but it happens both ways. I'm approached a lot of time by administrators, but I'm also, when I run statewide seminars, I just appeal to teachers, and they come and learn the process. It really works great if you have an administrator, or even if it goes to the superintendent. I have a couple districts that I've worked with for 3 to 5 years that I would just put them up. They're just doing wonderful things. It's just their whole district, pre-K through 12, have instituted the practices. They aren't perfect, but they have got people talking, and now they're finally getting some of their community involved, and it's just going to get better and better. But I think that you need, first of all, the school needs to have a need that they feel like restorative practices is going to meet, and they have to be willing to devote some time in training to do this. This is something that, for me, I can train people, and the people I train can train the others. So it's sort of train the trainer model is what I hope happens, because I'm actually retired. I'm not looking for more work to do. I just do this because I just see how successful it is when it's really done. So I will go in, and sometimes I go in and talk with the staff, and I'll do, usually I like to do 2 or 3 hour trainings, and then staff should be able to move along and institute it. And I always support. If I work with a school, I offer my support free of charge. If they have questions and they text me and they email me, I just feel like I need to be a supporter for them. And so if we just have to have a conversation about something, that's all well and good. I can provide as much information as I can. But it just needs to happen. But some of the things that we think about, just to sort of, I know some of the things that you would sort of convey to me. I just believe that there are 4 things that people need to look at in order to be their authentic selves, which allows them to be the best they can be. And the first 2 are helping people understand how to deal with their feelings and their fears. And one thing we know, Brene Brown says, one thing about feeling and fears, you don't deal with them, they're going to rear their ugly heads in a negative way. And you just need to understand that we all have feelings and fears, and we need to be able to work with someone to work through those. So that's why we talk about creating an environment where people feel safe and trusting enough to be able to bring their feelings and fears. The other one is helping teachers in the beginning, but we also, the same thing with students, allow yourself to be vulnerable. Don't only allow yourself to operate in situations where you know where the outcome is. Sometimes you just got to take a chance. You got to be vulnerable. You got to know what your values and your beliefs are, and you've got to go with those, and you've got to ask kids to do that. So those are three things that I really learned from Brene Brown. And the last one that I've been working on the last 3 or 4 years is that we need to, and I know this from having taught ancient history for years in the middle school, is that once civilization started, the conflicts got bigger. And conflicts have been around since the start of the world, and they don't have to be negative. Conflict should be seen as a learning opportunity. And that's why with restorative practices, when people have a conflict, we try to tell them, let's talk about it. Let's identify the harm, and let's talk about how we're going to repair the harm if we did it, or how we ask for what we need if our needs aren't getting met. And I just think that those four things are just so very important. The other piece that I tell educators that I believe, two things that I learned from working with restorative practices that I use anytime I confront conflict or a situation I'm unaware, totally know the situation is either ask, what do you need, or tell me what happened. So many of the times we assume what people need and we assume what happened when we don't know. So if you see conflict, instead of assuming it's what you saw, ask what it is. Have the people involved in the conflict explain to you what happened or how they're feeling so that you can help them deal with that.
Yeah, boy, there's a whole lot in there. The whole emotional piece that you talked about. And this idea of the mental health, that to me is what's really happening. Is we aren't, and I don't know where kids used to get it necessarily, but there's that derogatory term that's kind of been put onto this current generation, snowflakes, right? They feel a little bit of pressure, a little bit of angst, and they just melt, right? That kind of idea. And I'm seeing it, right? Seeing that the kids feel a little anxious, or they get upset real easy. They don't know how to deal with that, and that's that mental health piece that I don't know that we're doing real well at teaching kids how to deal with that. One of the things in all the years I worked with kids who were always on they were outliers, right? They struggled with their emotions, behavioral issues, all of that. And there's two things I wanted to do when there is a conflict. And yes, if somebody did something wrong, we need to kind of have that person, and we got to deal with that somehow. But we also, that person who felt wronged, we got to help them learn to deal with their emotions, because there's gonna be people who don't say the right thing, who can be hurtful intentionally or not intentionally, and you can't control that, but you can control how you react to it. So, that all plays into mindset. So restorative practices, it sounds like it's a system of being able to communicate as a community better, so that these conflicts can get resolved. But it's this beliefs that you kind of alluded to too. How do you go about helping to get teachers, if that's who you're working with primarily, but even parents, to accept some of these belief changes? It sounds like that's, when we talk about mindset, I'm talking about mindset really is a set of beliefs that are shaping how you view a particular, area of your life. So is that something that's, yeah.
The thing that I like to do is people need to have a voice. You need to have a voice and a choice in what happens in your life, whether it be at school or whether it be your family at home or whether. And I say that starts with teachers. Teachers today work to no end, and they keep piling things on for teachers to work without having conversations about what all of those things are. There just needs to be more conversations about what's happening and why it's happening and how it can happen. The one thing that I really when the first school that I really worked at, where I had a chance to do everything restoratively because that was my job, that I felt like I wanted to know what the kids felt like their school was like. And I asked them. They had no idea. Their response is, oh, we're here to learn, but we're here to play sports and have fun and be with our kids. But they didn't know what their school stood for. And I tell people when I meet with them, I said, can you identify what your school stands for? If I was to go in your school and ask your students, what does your school stand for? 99% of the people can't do that. They can tell me things, but they're way off base. The kids have no idea. It's some wordsmith document that they have written in and it doesn't mean anything. You have to go back to the drawing table, I believe, and have school be something that kids can believe in and can feel ownership with. And I can tell you, the schools that I work with that do that, it's a whole different climate. It gets kids in school, and once you get kids in school, they don't want to let their teachers down because they know how hard their teachers are working. But you've got to have them in a frame of mind to come into class. And then when I just don't think, it goes back to what I said, it's doing things with people. I don't think we listen. I don't think when there's conflict, we listen to understand what the conflict really is. I think we just label it and we deal with it and then we move on. And you can't punish change. Behavioral change does not happen through inflicted punishment. It just does not. That's all the data will show you that. And I just think we need to get away from that, and we need to know that it's about relationships. And when things happen, I mean, I was in a school just a week or so ago, and one of the people I was doing a circle with said, I don't understand what's going on in my class. And I just said, well, let's have a circle. We'll talk about, that's what I'll do with them. I'm just going to ask them. But here again, I have to preface with the teacher. You're going to have to now allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to hear things that you don't want to hear. And they aren't necessarily things that kids are saying to be hateful, but it's kids that they're dealing with their feelings and their fears. And we need them to talk about them in order to change that environment so that they feel safe and trusted in there enough so they're going to do whatever you ask them to do. And I tell you, just changed the whole dynamics of her class from there on. I've heard from her 2 or 3 times in the last 3-4 weeks, and she just says it has really helped. It isn't perfect, but every time I have to stop a class, what I'm talking about is what they said they needed in order to be successful in school, because they made the rules. And they understand that, and we can just move on. It doesn't take a blow-up or some other long, dragged-out conversation or sending someone to the office or disciplinary action.
So it sounds like when it's done well in a school, that there's work like that done within the classroom with a teacher and the students, but there's also another level above that where maybe an administrator or something can pull together whoever, the kids or what have you, so that it really permeates the whole school. Is that kind of accurate? That if it's not done on the classroom level too, it's
absolutely accurate. It has to start with the staff and the administration. They have to have a belief that they're going to do things with people and not to them and for them. Now they're going to encounter, you know, as a teacher, and I know as a teacher and as an administrator, there's conflict that happens every day. It's how you approach it that sets the tone for your building. If you just say this is this and that's that, then good luck with it. I know it doesn't work. I worked in schools where it didn't work, and it just doesn't. But you have to be able to. That's why I believe that administrators, when they have staff meetings, they should be held in a circle format where everyone's voice is heard. And then, and people say, well, I have a big staff. Well, I've worked with as many as 180 people staff, and I've done circles with them, and we've come to some real good understandings to answer a couple questions that the administration needed feedback on. And for me, I'm only going to speak for me, but when I was a teacher and I went to a staff meeting, I was pretty much uninvolved. I was either doing my practice plan for basketball or cross country or something, or putting in my grades. I didn't care. I figured whatever was going to happen, they were going to tell me what I needed to do, and I needed to do it. But when you operate with a restorative mindset, you listen to everybody's voice, and you get their input. And this thing we call fair process. It isn't democracy. You don't get the final say, but you get to say. You get to have a voice. And data shows that people are more willing to work for something when they've had some input in it, even if it wasn't exactly the way that they wanted it.
So I imagine there's probably data out there too that shows that not only when it's going well, right? It makes sense from a purely logical standpoint, right? If it's working well and the conflicts decline, the mental health of students and staff improves, academics improve, behavior problems decrease. It seems like absenteeism from staff probably decreases, right? I mean, all those things, I know there's data that shows that. What would prevent, what would prevent, or what seems to prevent school districts from trying to get involved? Restorative practices, that idea or concept's been around for quite a while now, but yet it's not prevalent in schools. I mean, so do you have any answers on what it is, why, what maybe some of the negative connotations are, or what do you have? Yeah, go ahead.
Change. People don't like to
change. Yeah,
and sometimes people aren't willing enough to let time take change over a period of time to make it happen. But I'm telling you, in this society that we're dealing with today, you don't have to do restorative practices. There's all kinds of good programs going out there. I'm not saying we're the only one, but I'm telling you, doing things with people instead of to and for them is the answer. I don't care whether it's restorative practices or any other number of things you do, but the quicker we wake up and smell the coffee that things aren't going well in public education. It's a struggle right now. Teachers are maxed. Anywhere I go, they don't want to see me because they think I'm asking them to do something different, something more. And I tell them, I'm not asking you to do one thing more. All I'm asking you to do is look at the things you're doing and how you're doing it, and the people and the methodology you're using to include everybody that's affected by what's going on in your building. Do they have a voice and a choice so that they want to belong? And I just tell you, a couple schools that I've worked at, we've just seen it all of a sudden. And instead of kids not wanting to be in school, they wanted to be in the building. But you have to make an effort to do things. You have to do some special things. You have to be able to provide some special things for them. It's I'm not going to say it's not work, but I'm working with 3-4 new schools this fall, and I have never been more excited that they have, the staffs have really reached out to me and I love it because I'm retired. I don't have a lot else to do, so I sit down at nights and I get emails and I just respond to them and I give them some tools and some ideas on how they do it. And I just think, I got 2 workshops coming up in the end of October that I'm excited about, that are going to offer the concepts of what restorative practices are, and I'm doing that by asking a panel of 5 or 6 different people that whose schools are really instituted restorative practice, and I want them to share the process they had. 2 or 3 of them, it's been 7 or 8 years that they've been in the process, and I want people to see what they do. But you just need to have, first of all, I think you need to have a need, if that makes any sense. That things have to be, and when I talk with people and they say, well, we can't do that, and I said, okay, how's it going for you?
Yeah.
They're having a tough time, but they aren't willing to look, and that's okay. I've made up my mind that I really want to work with people who really want to try to do it. I believe that, not myself, but I believe what I bring to schools about restorative practices will make a difference in your school if that's the path that you want to choose. And if you don't want to, then I wish you best of luck, because I know how burned out teachers are, and I know how disengaged a lot of students are right now, and we need to change both of those philosophies, and we do it by working with people instead of not.
Yeah, well, thank you for all this. This has been very good. I know there's probably some people who at least can go, I want to learn more about this. Is there like a website? And is there a national organization or anything that does this?
You can Google restorative practices. There's all kinds of stuff on the internet. I have a website of my own that I use that just basically lists me and my philosophies, and when I have workshops and what I can offer.
What's that website? I can put it in the little notes that go with this.
It's restorative-practicesofmaine.com.
Okay, that's easy enough. Restorative-practicesofmaine.com.
Yeah, and I think in my business is Restorative School Culture LLC. All
right, well, fabulous. And again, thank you. I think this has been real informative, and it leaves me with a little bit more positive, knowing that there are people looking for solutions. We got systems, we got things out there that can do it, and recognizing.
And I do want to say there's a lot of good things, good changes going on in a lot of places. I don't want to divulge the programs and stuff, because it's not my business to do that. But a lot of schools are trying to use some programs that are very, very good, similar to restorative practices. But I would just tell people, if you aren't doing things and things aren't going the way you want, restorative practices just is an enhancement to anything that's happening in your school, because it gives everyone a chance to have a voice and a choice. And I just believe that's what has to happen, whether you're a staff member or an administrator or a parent or whatever. That's important.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And for all of you who are listening to this, there is that whole idea about mindset and how that shapes a whole lot of this. And with a lot of the work I do is about helping groups, but families, teams, organizations, entrepreneurs, right, learn how to deal with their own mindset, and then that can kind of ripple out into the larger community as well. So if you have any questions on how what might be going on in your own family, your own school organization, you can also reach out to me at coachchuck360.com. I have a lot of information about there, about some of the things I'm doing as well. And again, you can Google restorative practices and get a lot of information on restorative practices. Restorative Practices practicesofmaine.com. That is George Conant's website, where you can get some more information on that as well. Yeah, go ahead.
I'd be more than willing to. They can have my email if they want it. It's just restorativepracticesofmaine@gmail.com.
All right. Very good. Restorative Practices of Maine @gmail.com. So there is the
to talk to people about it.
email, so you can reach out if you are in this part of the country. So again, if you have any question, you want to even have a conversation with me about mindset training and what that looks like and how you can dramatically and profoundly impact not only your family but your business or organization by deliberately and purposely helping to shape and shift people's mindset, you can reach out to me at coachchuck360.com. So until next time, I hope you have a wonderful number of days.